नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। लेकिन श्रीमद् भागवतम 2.1.3 to 2.1.11 purport, somewhere in the middle. Okay, text 3. निद्रया ह्रियते नक्तं व्यवायेन च वा वयः दिवाचार्थे हया राजन् कुटुम्बं भरणेन वा. The lifetime of such an envious householder is passed at night either in sleeping or in sex indulgence, and in the daytime either in making money or maintaining family members. तैश्च वृथा वृथैव आयुर्व्ययो भवति इत्याह. The life of a person who is not engaged in devotional service to Lord Krishna is wasted. This is conveyed in the current text. चकारौ अनुक्त समुच्चयार्थौ. The word cha appears twice. That indicates that there are other similar activities performed by these envious householders. Ati prakrtanam tu nidraya ityadi. This is for those who are excessively materialistic. Karminam stri sangasya annishiddhatvat. Karmis are not forbidden from restricted association of women. Karma yoge kutumba bharanasya vihitatvat. In the practice of karma, it is prescribed that one must maintain one's family members. The present human civilization is primarily based on the principles of sleeping and sex indulgence at night and earning money in the day and spending the same for family maintenance. Such a form of human civilization is condemned by the Bhagavata school. Because human life is a combination of matter and spirit soul, the whole process of Vedic knowledge is directed at liberating the spirit soul from the contamination of matter. The knowledge concerning this is called Atma Tattva. Those men who are too materialistic, Ati Prakrita, are unaware of this knowledge and are more inclined to economic development for material enjoyment. Such materialistic men are called karmis or fruitive laborers, and they are allowed regulated economic development and association of women for sex indulgence. Regulated means restricted. Those who are above the karmis, that is the jnanis, yogis, and devotees, are strictly prohibited from sex indulgence. The karmis are more or less devoid of Atma-tattva knowledge, and as such, their life is spent without spiritual profit. The human life is not meant for hard labor for economic development, nor is it meant for sex indulgence like that of the dogs and hogs. It is especially meant for making a solution to the problems of material life and the miseries thereof. So the karmis waste their valuable human life by sleeping and sex indulgence at night and by laboring hard in the daytime to accumulate wealth. And after doing so, they try to improve the standard of materialistic life. The materialistic way of life is described here in a nutshell, and how foolishly men waste the boon of human life is described as follows. 4. Dehapatya kalatradishvatma sainyeshva satswapi Tesham pramatto nidhanam pashyannapi na pashyati. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. Asatsu api, fallible. In Madhvacharya's um, commentary, it is indicated that asatsu or fallible soldiers refers to inauspicious soldiers. The body, children, wife, and so on are considered inauspicious. Nanu nashvara kutumbadhyartham katham ayurvyayam kuryat. How is it possible for one to waste one's life for the sake of temporary family and so on? This verse answers that question. One becomes obsessed with all of these associates of one's self. All of these means the body and so on, even though they are false. In Sridhar Swami's language, false means temporary, worthless. Tesham pitradi drishtantena nasham pashyan na anusantarte. Even though one sees that one's father has died, his father has died, and so on. Even if one considers them to be instances or examples of inevitable death, still one does not clearly see this, that he is going to die. Apashyatam atvatattam iti yaduktam tad vivranati. This is an elaboration of apashyatam atvatattam. They don't see the truth of the self. Dehadishu atmana sainyeshu swa sainyatulyeshu. The body, children, wife, and so on are considered to be soldiers because they are like one's soldiers. Kalena saha yodhumiva iti bhavaha. The implication is they are all soldiers in one's struggle against the destructive force of time. Asatsopi jivatmanaha dehadi sambandha bhavat mithyabhuteshu api teshu pramattaha prasaktaha. Even though the jivatma, in comparison to the jivatma, the body and so on are false because they don't have a real relationship with the jivatma, still one becomes obsessed. Yadva asatsu api asadhushu api bahirmukhatva asamartheshu api ityarthaha. Even though they are inauspicious because they are not inclined towards the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or even though they are incapable, pramattaha, unavahitaha. She does not pay attention. Yataha, because tesham nidhanam ka. Kalenaiva. Nasham. Anashtanamavi uttradrishtantena nasham. Pashyanapi na anusantarte. Because even though he sees that everything is being destroyed by the force of time, still he does not pursue. Tena ayam kalenaiva grasyate. Because he sees that everything is going to be swallowed by time. Bhagavad Bhaktastu Bhagavad Unmukhaye Dehadipir Apramattaha Kalanam Api Jayati Iti Bhavaha. The implication is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, on the other hand, his body, children, wife, and so on are favorable to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is not inattentive. and therefore he conquers over the force of time. This material world is called the world of death. Every living being beginning from Brahma, whose duration of life is some thousands or millions of years, down to the germs who live for a few seconds only, is struggling for existence. Therefore, this life is a sort of fight with material nature, which imposes death upon all. In the human form of life, a living being is competent enough to come to an understanding of this great struggle for existence, but being too attached to family members, society, country, etc., he wants to win over the invincible material nature by the aid of bodily strength, children, wife, relatives, etc. Although he is sufficiently experienced in the matter by dint of past experience and previous examples of his deceased predecessors, he does not see that the so-called fighting soldiers like the children, relatives, society members, and countrymen are all fallible in the great struggle. One should examine the fact that his father or his father's father has already died and that he himself is therefore also sure to die. And similarly, his children, who are the future fathers of their children, will also die in due course. No one will survive in the struggle with material nature. The history of human society definitely proves it. Yet the foolish people still suggest that in the future they will be able to live perpetually with the help of material science. This poor fund of knowledge exhibited by human society is certainly misleading, and it is all due to ignoring the constitution of the living soul. This material world exists only as a dream due to our attachment to it. Otherwise, the living soul is always different from the material nature. The great ocean of material nature is tossing with the waves of time, and the so-called living conditions are something like foaming bubbles which appear before us as bodily self, wife, children, society, countrymen, etc. Due to a lack of knowledge of the self, we become victimized by the force of ignorance and thus spoil the valuable energy of human life in a vain search after permanent living conditions, which are impossible in this material world. Our so-called friends, relatives, and wives and children are not only fallible, but also bewildered by the outward glamour of material existence. As such, they cannot save us. Still, we think that we are safe within the orbit of family, society, or country. Orbit. Each of us, we keep ourselves within such orbits. We interpret the world and the phenomenon that we experience in life based on the thought processes of the members of that orbit. The whole materialistic advancement of human civilization is like the decoration of a dead body. Everyone is a dead body flapping only for a few days, and yet all the energy of human life is being wasted in the decoration of this dead body. Shukadev Goswami is pointing out the duty of the human being after showing the actual position of bewildered human activities. Persons who are devoid of the knowledge of Atma Tattva are misguided, but those who are devotees of the Lord and have perfect realization of transcendental knowledge are not bewildered. 5. Tasmad Bharat Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtidavyascha Smartavyascha Bhayam. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. एवं विपर्यय प्रश्नोत्तरम् उक्त्वा श्रोतव्यादि प्रश्नस्य उत्तरमाह तस्मादिति. So, having answered the question of what should not be done, the negative question, now he is answering the positive question on what should be heard and so on. Tasmat, E Bharata, Bharatavamshya, O descendant of King Bharata, Sarvatmeti Preshtatva Sarvatma, the super soul, literally the self of everyone. This indicates that he is dearmost to everyone. Bhagavan iti Saundaryam. The expression Bhagavan, the personality of God, Bhaga means opulence. So Bhagavan indicates his beauty. Ishvara iti avashyakatva. The word Ishvara, the controller, indicates that this is mandatory, it is compulsory. Haririti bandha haritvam. Hari, meaning the Lord who vanquishes all miseries. Uh, this indicates that He is going to take away everything that unnecessarily binds us to our sufferings. Abhayam, mokshamikshata. One who desires to be free from uh, uh, one who desires free from fear. Abhaya literally means fearlessness. And here in this context, it refers to freedom from all miseries or liberation. Jiva Goswami, Abhayam Sarvadukha Nivaraka Sarvanandamaya Purushartham. One who desires that goal of life, which is filled with all kinds of bliss, which uh, removes one, which removes all of one's miseries. He should engage in these processes. Because there are parallel verses in the Bhagavatam which give this meaning. 2.1.13, 10.3.22 and 21, and so on. अतः कृतार्थी भवितुं कर्मादिकम् अकुर्वाणां भक्तिमेव कुर्वीरन् इत्याह तस्मादिति. So therefore, if one wants to become successful in his spiritual pursuit without engaging in Dharma, Jnana, Yoga, one should only engage in bhakti. This point is conveyed in the current verse. Abhayam, swapara, abhava, abhava, ichhata. One who desires, or swapara, swaparabhava, abhava. One who desires the absence of being defeated by others, or one who desires the non-existence of oneself, which means one who desires eternal life. Ichhada apumsa Hari Shotavya. He must hear about Hari. Atra Haririti Vishesha Padam. Here the word Hari is to be taken as the noun. Sarvatma ityadi visheshana trayena moksha abhisandhini raganuga vaidhicha bhaktir vyanjita. And the remaining words, Sarvatma, Bhagavan, Ishvaraha, are to be considered adjectives of this word. Here, bhakti that is aimed at liberation, as well as Raganuga bhakti, as well as Vaidhi bhakti. All of these are indicated. Tatra prathamayam abhayam mokshamichhata sarvesham atma paramatma harishotavya. One who desires liberation, he must hear about Lord Hari, who is the self of all, or the supreme self, Paramatma. Dvitiyayam abhayam nishkampam yata sya tatha ichhata lobhavata pumsa. Bhagavan atisundaraha nandasunuhu shotavyaha iti. In the second case, that person who is desired, who is greedy, that man who is greedy to attain the most beautiful Bhagavan, Nandanandana, in such a manner that he is not frightened of the Supreme Lord, is not terrified of the Supreme Lord. Such a person should hear about the most beautiful son of Nanda Maharaj. The word Bhaga can actually refer to beauty, according to the Amara Kosha, a standard authoritative thesaurus. Tritiyayam, the third option, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, that is also dealt with here. Triyayam, na bibeti asmaditi abhayaha harireva. Here, Abhayam is to be taken to mean, taken to refer to Lord Hari himself. One um, from whom one does not require, from whom one does not fear. And 2.1.13 itself has the word Hari and the word Abhayam, the source of fearlessness, as um, Lord Hari being is described as the source of all fearlessness. इति अग्रिमश्लोकदृष्टे स्तमिच्छता अभयम् आत्मत्राणमिच्छता वा, or it refers to a person who desires to save his self. ईश्वरः हरिः ईशितव्येन पुंसा श्रोतव्यः. So such a person, he should hear about Lord Hari in his capacity as the Lord, the one who is capable of lording it over everyone else. इत्यादि कीर्तव्यश्च स्मर्तव्यश्च इति चकाराभ्यां श्रवणानन्तरं कीर्तनस्मरणयोः एककालत्वं विहितमिति श्रोतव्यादि प्रश्नस्य उत्तरम् उक्तम्. The word cha here, श्रोतव्य कीर्तितव्यश्च, and the word cha that comes after smartavya, smartavyah cha, indicates that after hearing, one engages in kirtanam and smaranam. It is prescribed that these two are done at the same time. So this is an answer to the question pertaining to what should be the subject of one's hearing and so on. In the previous verse, Sri Shukadeva Goswami has described how the foolish materially attached men are wasting their valuable time in the improvement of their material condition, of the material conditions of life, by sleeping, indulging in sex life, developing economic conditions, and maintaining a band of relatives who are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. Being engaged in all these materialistic activities, the living soul entangles himself in the cycle of the law of fruitive actions. This entails the chain of birth and death in the 8,400,000 species of life. The aquatics, the vegetables, the reptiles, the birds, the beasts, the uncivilized men, and then again, the civilized human form, which is the chance for getting out of the cycle of fruitive action. Therefore, if one desires freedom from this vicious circle, then one must cease to act as a karmi or enjoyer of the results of one's own work, good or bad. One should not do anything either good or bad in his own account, but must execute everything on behalf of the Supreme Lord, the ultimate proprietor of everything that be. This process of doing work is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita 9.27 also, where instruction is given for working on the Lord's account. Therefore, one should first of all hear about the Lord. When one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds, and thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord. And by so doing, one will be always in the association of the Lord. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. The Lord is the super soul, Paramatma, present in the hearts of all living beings, and thus by the above hearing and glorifying process, the Lord invites the association of all in his creation. This process of hearing about and glorifying the Lord is applicable for everyone, whoever he may be, and it will lead one to the ultimate success in everything in which one may be engaged by providence. There are many classes of human beings: the fruitive workers, the empiric philosophers, the mystic yogis, and ultimately the unalloyed devotees. For all of them, one and the same process is applicable for achieving the desired success. Everyone wants to be free from all kinds of fear, and everyone wants the fullest extent of happiness in life. The perfect process for achieving this, here and now, is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is uttered by such a great authority as Srila Shukadeva Goswami. So the idea is that all of this, when executed exclusively, when one executes Kevala Bhakti, Ananya Bhakti, then one attains the results in this life, here and now, in this life, all a person's activities become molded into spiritual activities by his hearing about and glorifying the Lord. Thus, all conceptions of material miseries become completely vanquished. 6. Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinishthaya Janmalabha Parah Pumsam Ante Narayana Smritihi. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duties to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Mohan Radhapati Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So in the commentary, last line we read that Eka Kalatvam, like at all these three have to be executed together, like something. In purport, we read that when one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify, and then it will be possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature. Means, so can they be executed separately also?
See, first of all, one has to learn the process. Shravanam is that. And then one engages in Kirtanam and Smaranam. Now, Kirtana will naturally include Shravanam. Smarana also comes about while one executes Kirtanam properly.
Yes.
So, this kind of engagement of Kirtana and Smarana after proper Shravana is what is prescribed. Even in Upadeshamrita, we find that, no? Text 8 also. Rasana manasi niyojya. One should engage one's tongue and one's mind.
So without like if one has heard, then means Kirtana Smaranam can be educated together, even if hearing goes on.
That goes without saying. When we engage in Kirtanam, automatically we have to hear.
Yes. Understood.
But when we discuss Shravanam, we are talking of only hearing. In Sanskrit, Shravana also has a sense of learning.
Yes.
Anyway, things will become clearer. It's all coming. In second canto itself, many things will become clear. Okay, where are we? Okay, here. अतः परम अन्यत् श्रेयो नास्ति इत्याह एतावानेव जन्मनः लाभः फलम्. There is nothing better than this. That is stated in the current verse. The highest perfection of life is Narayana Smriti at the end. Sankhyadevi sadhya iti tesha swatantrena labhatvam varayati. In other words, all these different processes that are referred to here, Sankhya, Yoga, Swadharma, they don't independently lead to one's aim, one's goal. One must come to the point of remembering Lord Narayana. Sankhyam Atma Anatma Vivekaha. The discriminate understanding, the distinct understanding of the Atma and Anatma. Atma means conscious being. Anatma means matter, that which is not conscious. And the yoga that is referred to here is Ashtanga Yoga. Antetu smriti parahalabha na tan mahima vaktum shakya ityartha. This is the highest goal, highest possible achievement. It is not possible to describe how glorious it is. Jnani karma prabhutayaha अन्ये अपि साधुसंगवशात् यदि भक्ता भवन्ति न पुनः कर्मादिकं कुर्वन्ति तदा तेऽपि कृतार्था इत्याह एतावान्. If the karmis, jnanis and yogis those who are not devotees, by the association of the Bhakta sadhus, if they become bhaktas and they do not engage in karma, jnana, yoga, or anya vilashita, that is also should be accepted. That even the anya vilashis, by the force of bhakta sadhu sangha, when they become bhaktas of the ananya type or of the kevala type, that means they don't engage nirapeksha sadhana. They do not engage in any other process. They don't engage in sinful activity. They don't engage in pious activities also. Then they also become successful. That is conveyed here. ज्ञान योग कर्मणाम अवसाने सनकादीन नवयोगेश्वर प्राचीन भक्ति प्रवृत्तीनाम इव नारायण स्मृति शुद्धा भक्ति यदि स्यात्. If at the end one attains remembrance of the personality of Godhead Narayana, which indicates pure devotional service unto his lotus feet, like the four Kumaras, like the nine Yogendras, like Prachina Varki, and so on. After executing Jnana Yoga, Karma, Jnana, the process of Jnana, the process of Yoga, the process of Karma, and so on, by executing Karma, Jnana, Yoga, they have finally come to the point of pure bhakti. Ante iti yadi punarapi bhaktim tyaktva jnanadishu nishtita na bhavanti iti artha. At the end, when they come to bhakti, means that they do not give up bhakti to go back to karma, jnana, yoga or anya vilashita. Atevam eva makshyate. Therefore, we will see 2.3.11 that we are talking of unfulfilling engagement in ecstatic devotion service unto the Lord. Janmana eva ante Narayana smriti parha labha iti cha kechidahu. And some interpret this verse to mean that remembrance of Lord Narayana at the end of this very life is the highest attainment. Narayana is the transcendental personality of Godhead beyond the material creation. Everything that is created, sustained, and at the end annihilated is within the compass of the Mahatattva, material principle, and is known as the material world. The existence of Narayana or the personality of Godhead is not within the jurisdiction of this Mahatattva. And as such, the name, form, attributes, etc. of Narayana are beyond the jurisdiction of the material world. By the speculation of empiric philosophy, which discerns matter from spirit, or by cultivation of mystic powers, which ultimately helps the performer to reach any planet of the universe or beyond the universe, or by discharge of religious duties, one can achieve the highest perfection, provided one is able to reach the stage of Narayana Smriti or constant remembrance of the personality of Godhead. This is possible only by the association of a pure devotee who can give a finishing touch to the transcendental activities of all jnanis, yogis, or karmis in terms of prescribed duties defined in the scriptures. There are many historical instances of the achievement of spiritual perfection, such as that of the Sanakadi Rishis. The Sanakadi Rishis refer to the four Kumaras, or the nine celebrated Yogendras, who attain perfection only after being situated in the devotion service of the Lord. None of the devotees of the Lord ever deviated from the path of devotion service by taking to other methods, such as those adopted by the Jnanis or Yogis. Everyone is anxious to achieve the highest perfection of this particular activity, and it is indicated herein that such perfection is Narayana Smriti, for which everyone must endeavor his best. In other words, life should be molded in such a manner that one is able to progressively remember the personality of God in every step of life. Okay, just 1 minute. प्रायेण मुनयो राजन् वृत्ता विदिशेधतः नैर्गुण्यस्था रमन्ते स्म गुणानु कथने हरे. They're very important statements. O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulative principles and restrictions, take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. Jnanapeksaya prayena. Prayena means, prayena can also mean mostly, which further can mean most of the time. And Madhvacharya says this word has been used because at other times they are in a state of samadhi in meditation. So when they come to external consciousness, then they take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. Otherwise, they are in meditation. Because due to ecstasy, one falls into samadhi. Sometimes that happens. Nairgunya samukta. This refers to the liberated souls. Etat samaga yen naste iti shute. So the Shruti says that the liberated souls are singing the Sama hymns, glorifying the Supreme Lord. तत्र सद् आचारं प्रमाणयति प्रायेण. So he had stated that this is the ultimate, this is the culmination, the engagement in pure devotion service unto Lord Hari is the culmination of all other practices. So now he gives evidence for that by pointing out the precedent set by the saintly authorities in the current verse. विधिषेधतः विधिनिषेधाभ्यां निवृत्ता नैर्गुण्ये ब्रह्मणि स्थिता अपि स्म प्रसिद्धम्. Sma indicates, Ramante Sma indicates that it is very well known that this phenomena takes place. That is, one is of the topmost type of transcendentalist, who is beyond the regulative principles and restrictions. Then they take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. संसिद्धिस्तु भगवद रूप गुण माधुर्य अनुभव एव सच ब्रह्म सायुज्यादपि अतिश्रेष्ठ इति महद अनुभव प्रमाणेन आह प्रायेण इति. The final perfection is the experience of the sweetness of the transcendental forms and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is far superior to merging into Brahman. This is then pointed out with reference to the evidence about the experience of the great souls. Prayena. Gunana kathane eva ramante natum nirvishesham brahma sukhepi ityartha. They take pleasure in repeatedly talking about the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They do not take pleasure in the joy of the impersonal Brahman. Prayena iti anena अन्ये जीवन मुक्ताः ततो निकृष्टाः सायुज्यार्थं गुणानुकथनं कुर्वन्ति न तु तत्र रमन्ते. The word prayena mainly, mostly indicates that there are other Jivan Muktas, other souls who are liberated while living, who are inferior to these transcendentalists. That means they are not the topmost transcendentalists. They engage in uh, glorifying the Supreme Lord, glorifying the qualities of the Supreme Lord in order to attain impersonal Brahma Sayujya. They do not take pleasure in this, because if they were to take pleasure in it, then they would want that itself to be the goal also. So they want bhakti as a sadhana, but not as a sadhya. The topmost transcendentalist is a liberated soul and is therefore not within the purview of the regulative principle. A neophyte who is intended to be promoted to the spiritual plane is guided by the spiritual master under regulative principles. He may be compared to a patient who is treated by various restrictions under medical jurisdiction. Generally, liberated souls take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities. As mentioned above, since Narayana Hari, the personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation, his form and attributes are not material. The topmost transcendentalists or liberated souls realize him by advanced experience of transcendental knowledge, and therefore they take pleasure in the discussion of the transcendental qualities of the Lord's pastimes. In the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, the personality of Godhead declares that his appearance and activities are all divyam or transcendental. The common man who is under the spell of material energy takes it for granted that the Lord is like one of us, and therefore he refuses to accept the transcendental nature of the Lord's form, name, etc. The topmost transcendentalist is not interested in anything material, and his taking interest in the matter of the Lord's activities is definite proof that the Lord is not like one of us in the material world. In the Vedic literatures also, it is confirmed that the Supreme Lord is one, but that he is engaged in his transcendental pastimes in the company of his unalloyed devotees, and that simultaneously is present as the super soul, an expansion of Baladev in the heart of all living entities. Therefore, the highest perfection of transcendental realization is to take pleasure in hearing and describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and not in merging into his impersonal domain of existence, for which the impersonalist monist aspires. Real transcendental pleasure is realized in the glorification of the transcendental Lord, and not in the feeling of being situated in his impersonal feature. But there are also others who are not the topmost transcendentalists, but are in a lower status, and who do not take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities of the Lord. Rather, they discuss such activities of the Lord formally, officially, with the aim of merging into his existence. India is filled with people like this. 8. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Achitavan Dwaparado Piturvaipayanadaham. At the end of the Dwapara Yuga, I studied this great supplement of Vedic literature named Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal to all the Vedas, from my father, Srila Dvaipayana Vyasa. Dwapara Adav, Madhvacharya interprets this to mean in Dwapara and at the beginning. At the beginning meaning before Krishna's incarnation. Vyasa Shat Shata Varshiyo Dhritarashtra Ajijana Skande. And he quotes from Skanda Purana that Vyasa begot Dhritarashtra when he was 600 years old. Sridhar Swami. Oh, what is this unprecedented uh, statement that you're making? Satyam apurvameva idam. Yes, it is unprecedented. And with this in mind, he speaks the current verse. Idam Bhagavad Proktam tan namaika prathanam puranam Brahma Sametam Sarva Vedatulya. This Bhagavatam, which means this Purana, which is spoken by Bhagavan, and which is famous, most famous with that particular name, or which is primarily describing his holy name. This is equal to all the Vedas. Yadva Brahma Samyak Mitam Yena. Or it also indicates that this Bhagavata Purana, it properly helps us understand and grasp the absolute truth, Brahman. Kutastvaya praptam ataha. Now, how did you get this? Adhitavan. I learned it. Dvaipayana pituhu. From my father, Dvaipayana. Kada, when? Dvaparada, Dvaparaha adivasya kalasya. Tasmin Dvaparahante ityartha. At the time when, at the time beginning with Dwapara Yuga. In other words, this happened towards the end of Dwapara. Shantanu Samakale Vyasavatar Prasiddhe. Because it is well known that Vyasa incarnated at the same time of Shantanu. Brahma Samyuktam has another meaning. Very nice meaning. It means that Srimad Bhagavatam is equal to Sri Krishna, who is the supreme Brahman in the form of a human being. This is conveyed in texts such as 1.3, 143. The word Bhagavatam, according to Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, refers to the book which is about Bhagavan, or the book which is spoken by Bhagavan. युष्मदस्मत् प्रश्नोत्तर विराजे श्री भगवल लीलामयम अंतर्भूत युष्मदादि जन्मस्थिति स्थिति कथा प्रपंचम अध्यात्म दीपम सर्वोपनिषद सार स्वरूपम अनादि सिद्धम एव मत्पित्रा बादरायणेन आविर्भावितम. My father Badarayana, he brought about the appearance of this Bhagavatam, which has no beginning, which is ever existing. It is the it is actually speaking the essence of all the Upanishad. In that way, it is a torchlight of spirituality, for spiritualists. It contains conversation between you and me pertaining to the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, as well as topics pertaining to the creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe. Sasmitam Samritam. अस्य शास्त्रस्य अर्थः बुद्धिबलेन स्वयं ज्ञातुम् अशक्य इति भावः. The meaning of the scripture cannot be grasped by oneself using one's own intelligence. The statement made by Srila Shukadeva Goswami in the last verse, that mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are beyond the jurisdiction of regulations and restrictions take to the task of hearing about and glorifying the personality of God. It is verified by his personal example. Shukadeva Goswami, being a recognized liberated soul and the topmost transcendentalist, was accepted by all of the topmost sages present in the meeting during the last 7 days of Maharaj Parikshit. He cites from the example of his life that he himself was attracted by the transcendental activities of the Lord, and he studied Srimad Bhagavatam from his great father, Dvaipayana Vyasadeva. Srimad Bhagavatam, or for that matter, any other scientific literature, cannot be studied at home by one's own intellectual capacity. Medical books of anatomy or physiology are available in the market, but no one can become a qualified medical practitioner simply by reading such books at home. One has to be admitted to the medical college and study the books under the guidance of learned professors. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam, the postgraduate study of the science of Godhead, can only be learned by studying it at the feet of a realized soul like Srila Vyasadeva. Although Shukadeva Goswami was a liberated soul from the very day of his birth, he still had to take lessons of Srimad Bhagavatam from his great father Vyasadeva, who compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam under the instruction of another great soul, Sri Narada Muni. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed a learned Brahmana to study Srimad Bhagavatam from a personal Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is based on the transcendental name, form, attributes, pastimes, entourage, and variegatedness of the Supreme Person. And it is spoken by the incarnation of the personality of Godhead, Kila Vyasadeva. Pastimes of the Lord are executed in cooperation with his pure devotees, and consequently, historical incidents are mentioned in this great literature because they are related to Krishna. It is called Brahma Samhitam because it is the sound representative of Lord Krishna, like the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is the sound incarnation of the Lord because it was spoken by the Supreme Lord. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the sound representative of the Lord because it was spoken by the incarnation of the Lord about the activities of the Lord. As stated in the beginning of this book, it is the essence of the Vedic Dissertation and the natural commentation on the Brahma Sutras, the topmost philosophical thesis on the subject matter of Brahman. Vyasadeva appeared at the end of Dwapara Yuga as the son of Satyavati, and therefore the word Dwapara Adav, or the beginning of Dwapara Yuga, in this context means just prior to the beginning of the Kali Yuga. The logic of this statement, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, is comparable to that of calling the upper portion of the tree the beginning. The root of the tree is the beginning of the tree, but in common knowledge, the upper portion of the tree is first seen. See, suppose I'm walking from a distance and I need to identify a spot. So I identify a spot in terms of particular trees that are prominent in my vision. So then the tree that is tallest is often identified first. So then tallest means that you are calculating from the top. In that way, the end of the tree is accepted as its beginning. The top is actually the end of the tree. Text 9. परिनिष्ठितोऽपि नैर्गुण्य उत्तमश्लोकलीलया गृहीतचेता राजर्षे आख्यानं यद् अधीतवान्. O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. Nine. So it looks like 9 and 10 are combined. No? परिनिष्ठितोऽपि मुक्तिरस्य भविष्यति इति निश्चितोऽपि. Fully realized. Parinishita also means having firmly ascertained. Siddhasya tava kuta adhyayana pravrittis. You are already perfect. So then what is this, your activity of studying this large book? So he speaks the current verse. Pushpachakritiram. Nanu, Om Atiprasitam. Shukadeva Goswami anticipates that his audience will be thinking like this. You are very reputed. Janmata eva brahmanubhavi. Grihat parivrajya gataha. From birth, you are an experience of Brahman. And you have renounced your home right from your birth. Anuvajantam pitaramapi naiva paryachaishi. You did not turn back to serve and learn from your father who was following you. Samprati katham evam brushe. And then now you are saying that I was in this position. Ityataha parnishita. In response to that, Shukadeva Goswami speaks the current verse. Brahmanubhavaadapi lilaya madhuryadikaha aham eva pramanam iti bhava. The implication is, the implied meaning is, I myself am the evidence that the sweetness of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is greater than the experience of impersonal Brahman. तर्हि इदम् अपूर्ववस्तु अहमपि लभेय इति अतः आमूलचूलमेव माम् येन देवा आस्वादय इति आकांक्षायाम् आह तदहम्. And not only I am experiencing it, but I would like this person, Parikshit, to also experience that. Mahapurusham Shri Krishna. Okay, that is coming now. The next verse. The absolute truth is realized as impersonal Brahman at the first instance by philosophical speculation, and later as a supersoul by further progress of transcendental knowledge. But if by the grace of the Lord and impersonalist and enlightened by the superior statements of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is also converted into a transcendental devotee of the personality of Godhead. With a poor fund of knowledge, we cannot adjust to the idea of the personality of the absolute truth. And thus the personal activities of the Lord are deplored by the less intelligent impersonalists. But reason and argument together with the transcendental process of approaching the absolute truth help even the staunch impersonalists to become attracted by the personal activities of the Lord. A person like Shukadeva Goswami cannot be convinced by any mundane activity, but when such a devotee is convinced by a superior method, he is certainly attracted by the transcendental activities of the Lord. The Lord is transcendental as are his activities. He is neither inactive nor impersonal. 10. Tadaham te bhidasyami mahapaurishiko bhavan yasya shraddhadhatamasu syan mukunde matisati. That very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you, because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unfinishing faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation. The giver of salvation is referred to as Mukunda. Mahapurusham, Shri Krishnam Praptum Arhasite Mahapaurishikaha. You are a Mahapaurishikaha, which means that you are fit to attain Shri Krishna, who is the Mahapurusha. Tatascha Janmadhyasya iti arabhya. So, beginning with Janmadhyasya, Vishnunatam Amuchat Ityantam, up to the text which says he delivered Vishnurata. Sarvamaiva Shri Bhagavatam Shravayamasa. So, Shukadeva Goswami taught all of this as Sri Bhagavatam. Ateva Prathama Dwadashayor Api Shukaproktatve Ambarish Shukaproktam Nityam Bhagavatam Shunu Iti Vachanam Samyak Upapadyate. There's a famous statement in the Puranas. Where Ambarisha is told, you must regularly hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. So now some people think that you must regularly hear Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Shukadeva Goswami means you have to start with the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and go up to that probably the first half of 12th canto. that portion which was actually spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. But Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, no, no, no. You listen to everything, everything, everything. Srimad Bhagavatam is recognized Vedic wisdom. And the system of receiving Vedic knowledge is called Avaroha Pantha, or the process of receiving transcendental knowledge through a bona fide disciplic succession. For advancement of material knowledge, there's a need for personal ability and researching aptitude. But in the case of a spiritual master, in the case of spiritual knowledge, all progress depends more or less on the mercy of the spiritual master. The spiritual master must be satisfied with the disciple. Only then is knowledge automatically manifested before the student of spiritual science. The process should not, however, be misunderstood to be something like magical feats whereby the spiritual master acts like a magician and injects spiritual knowledge into his disciple as if surcharging him with an electrical current. The bona fide spiritual master reasonably explains everything to the disciple on the authority of Vedic wisdom. We can see that here, Shukadeva Goswami doing. The disciple can receive such teachings not exactly intellectually, but by submissive inquiries and a service attitude. The idea is that both the spiritual master and the disciple must be bona fide. In this case, the spiritual master Shukadeva Goswami is ready to recite exactly what he has learned from his great father Srila Vyasadeva. And the disciple Maharaj Parikshit is a great devotee of Lord Krishna. A devotee of Lord Krishna is he who believes sincerely that by becoming a devotee of the Lord, one becomes fully equipped with everything spiritual. This is that verse. Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Kritahaya. This teaching is imparted by the Lord himself in the pages of the Bhagavad Gita, in which it is clearly described that the Lord Sri Krishna is everything, and that to surrender unto him solely and wholly makes one the most perfectly pious man. Bhaknam Janmanam Ante Gyanavan Mam Prapadyate. This unflinching faith in Lord Krishna prepares one to become a student of Srimad Bhagavatam, and one who hears Srimad Bhagavatam from a devotee like Shukadeva Goswami is sure to attain salvation at the end, as Maharaj Parikshit did. The professional reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam and the pseudo devotees whose faith is based on 1 week's hearing are different from Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. Srila Vyasadeva explained Srimad Bhagavatam unto Shukadeva Goswami from the very beginning of the Janmadhyasya verse, and so Shukadeva Goswami also explained it to the king. Lord Krishna is described as the Mahapurusha in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, in his devotional feature as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Words, Mahapurusha is the same as Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord Krishna himself in his devotional attitude, descended to earth to bestow special favors upon the fallen souls of this age of Kali. There are 2 verses particularly suitable to offer his prayers to this Mahapurusha feature of Lord Krishna. Dhyayam sada paribhavagnam abhishtadopam tirthaspadam shivavirinchinutam sharanyam dhrityartiham pranatapala bhavaddipotam vande mahapurushate charanarvindam त्यक्त्वा सुदुस्तेज सुरेप्सितराज्य लक्ष्मीं धर्मिष्ठा आर्यवचसा यदगादरण्यं मायामृगं दयते यत्स्थमन्वधापद्वन्दे महापुरुषते शरणारविन्दम्. Purusha means the enjoyer, and Mahapurusha means the supreme enjoyer, or the supreme personality of God, Sri Krishna. One who deserves to approach the supreme Lord Sri Krishna is called the Mahapaurushika. Anyone who hears Srimad Bhagavatam attentively from its bona fide reciter is sure to become a sincere devotee of the Lord, who is able to award liberation. There was none so attentive as Maharaj Parikshit in the matter of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and there was none so qualified as Shukadeva Goswami to recite the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, anyone who follows in the footsteps of either the ideal reciter or the ideal hearer, Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit respectively, will undoubtedly attain salvation like them. Maharaj Parikshit attained salvation by hearing only, and Shukadeva Goswami attained salvation only by reciting. Recitation and hearing are two processes out of 9 devotion activities, and strenuously following these processes. Either all of them or some of them, one can attain the absolute plane. So, the complete text of Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning with the Janmadhyasya verse up to the last one in the 12th canto, was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami for the attainment of salvation by Maharaj Parikshit. In the Padma Purana, it is mentioned that Gautama Muni advised Maharaj Ambarisha to hear regularly Srimad Bhagavatam, as it was recited by Shukadeva Goswami. And therein it is confirmed that Maharaj Ambarish heard Srimad Bhagavatam from the very beginning to the end, as it was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. One who is actually interested in the Bhagavatam, therefore, must not play with it by reading or hearing a portion from here and a portion from there. One must follow in the footsteps of great kings like Maharaj Ambarish or Maharaj Parikshit and hear it from a bona fide representative of Shukadeva Goswami. Okay, then we go to 11. Etan nirvidyamananam ichtam akuto bhayam yoginam rupanirnetum hare namanu kirtanam. O king, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. Sadhakanam siddhanam cha na atah param anyat shreyaha asti. There is nothing better than this for both sadhakas and siddhas. Ikshatam, Hamina, Tat Phala Sadhanam Etadeva. It is this constant chanting of the holy name that is a means to attain the respective results of the materialistic souls. Nirvidyamanana mumukshuna moksha sadhanam etadeva. And this process of chanting the holy name of the Lord is the means. If one desires liberation, this itself will constitute the means. Yogina, Jnaninam Phalam, Chaita Deva, Nirnitam. And it has been ascertained that the ones with spiritual knowledge, here Yoginam refers to one with spiritual realization. Jnana is technically called. For that also, this itself is the meaning, and this itself is the evidence. Natra pramanam vaktavyam ityarthaha. There is no need to look for further evidences in accordance with this. So, then we move into the topic of 10 offenses. In the previous verse, the great necessity for attaining attachment to Mukunda has been accredited. There are different types of persons who desire to attain success in different varieties of pursuits. Generally, the persons are materialists who desire to enjoy the fullest extent of material gratification. Next to them are transcendentals who have attained perfect knowledge about the nature of material enjoyment and thus are aloof from such an illusory way of life. More or less, they are satisfied in themselves by self-realization. Above them are the devotees of the Lord who neither aspire to enjoy the material world nor desire to get out of it. Thereafter, the satisfaction of the Lord, Sri Krishna. In other words, the devotees of the Lord do not want anything on their personal account. If the Lord desires, the devotees can accept all sorts of material facilities. And if the Lord does not desire this, the devotees can leave aside all sorts of facilities, even up to the limit of salvation, nor are they self-satisfied because they want the satisfaction of the Lord only. No, I think this I should. Okay, one more paragraph. In this verse, Sri Shukadeva Goswami recommends the transcendental chanting of the holy name of the Lord. By offenseless chanting and hearing of the holy name of the Lord, one becomes acquainted with the transcendental form of the Lord. That means one realizes the form of the Lord, spiritual form of the Lord. And then with the attributes of the Lord. And then his mind realizes the attributes of the Lord. And then with the transcendental nature of his pastimes, etc. Then with the spiritual eyes, he is able to see the Lord's pastimes. And so on. Hear, see, touch, all the knowledge acquiring senses of the soul are activated. Here it is mentioned that one should constantly chant the holy name of the Lord after hearing it from authorities. This means that hearing from the authorities is the first essential. Hearing the holy name gradually promotes one to the stage of hearing about his form, his attributes, his pastimes, and so on. And thus the necessity of the chanting of his glories develops successively. This process is recommended not only for the successful execution of devotion service, but also even for those who are materially attached. According to Sri Shukadeva Goswami, this way of attaining success is an established fact, concluded not only by him, but also by all other previous acharyas. Therefore, there is no need of further evidence. The process is recommended not only for the progressive students in different departments of ideological success, but also for those who are already successful in their achievement as fruitful workers, as philosophers, or as devotees of the Lord. Okay, I'll stop with that. Then there's a very extended, nice description of the different Nama Paradas in Jiva Goswami's commentary. We'll look at that tomorrow. Okay, so we'll stop with that. Mohan Radha Madhipur.
In the previous purport, there was special mention that Shukadeva Goswami heard Bhagavatam. Sorry, he recited Bhagavatam from. He heard and recited Bhagavatam from beginning to the end, from Janmadasya verse. So, is there some specific verse in Padma Puran which mentions that he heard from Janmadasya to the end like that?
No.
Prabhupada writes
that Padma Purana verse says, that Padma Purana verse is directed to Ambarish Maharaj, saying that you must recite the Srimad Bhagavatam that was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. That itself indicates that the entire Bhagavata Purana was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. It can also be understood in this way. Lord Krishna taught Brahma a certain portion. Then Brahma taught Narada. That appears in a different portion. Narada taught Vyasa. That appears in a different portion. Then Vyasa reported the conversation between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj during Parikshit's assembly, in Parikshit's assembly. And then Suta Goswami, who heard also from Sri Shukadeva Goswami, he spoke the remaining portion from the first canto portion and the later portion, the portion after Shukadeva Goswami spoke. That is in the 12th canto, maybe around 60% of that. So, because Suta Goswami is a representative of Shukadeva Goswami and everything that he speaks is in line with Shukadeva Goswami, one can consider that when he speaks, that is also Shukadeva Goswami speaking. In that way, the entire Bhagavatam is understood to be Shukadeva Goswami's message to humanity.
Yes, true.
Okay, we'll stop with that. On Shagalputra Vishnu Pasandev Shiva Chapati Tanam Pavan, Shiva Vishnu, Namo Namaha.